Could the Detroit Lions trade Hendon Hooker this offseason? That is the question that every Detroit Lions fan and most of the media have asked several times over this year, and the trade makes a lot of sense. Hendon Hooker is a former third-round pick, a former Heisman frontrunner from the University of Tennessee that will never get a chance to play in Detroit. Jared Goff is under contract for the next 4 seasons. Hendon Hooker is already 27 years old, and after tearing his ACL 2 seasons ago, has had limited playing time in the NFL. Now, with the NFL draft being very low in quality for the quarterback position, there are a lot of people asking, could Hendon Hooker be a better option? Could he be a player that is better than the quarterbacks in the NFL draft? And would that value be better to NFL teams? And today, that is what we will be talking about. We'll be talking about Hendon Hooker's value around the NFL, what he did in college, what he's accomplished in the NFL, why he may or may not be an interesting option for NFL teams, and what that value actually is as a trade target acquisition. Now, as we get into it, we're taking a look at Hendon Hooker as a prospect. But first, let's take a look at what the rumor actually is, because there are a number of them. The NFL rumor is that Hendon Hooker is on the trade block. The former third-round pick from Tennessee is a player that could be interesting to many NFL teams, and there's no shortage of teams that need a quarterback this offseason. The Tennessee Titans, the Cleveland Browns, the New York Giants, and several others across the league are dying for competent quarterback play. And unfortunately, this year really isn't the year to need a quarterback. Cam Ward is a good prospect for sure. Shiloh Sanders, I think, has quite a bit of upside. But outside of that, you're looking at Jackson Dart, who's an all-right prospect. You're looking at Jalen Milroe. You're looking at Quinn Ewers. And just after that, there isn't very many talented quarterback prospects at all. Coming off of a year where we saw 6 quarterbacks taken in the top 12, we may only see 2 quarterbacks taken in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft this season, and the overall class is just extremely weak compared to years prior. So, does that mean that Hendon Hooker is a better quarterback prospect than the other guys in the draft? Well, at Tennessee, Hendon Hooker was phenomenal. At 6'4", 218 pounds, his 2 years at Tennessee were spent well. 6,080 yards, 58 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions with 430 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns on top of it. Hendon Hooker finished top 5 in the Heisman voting despite tearing his ACL in November. He didn't play the final couple weeks of the college football season, and as such, his Heisman stock fell, his draft stock fell, and of course, he fell through the NFL draft. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he was a really, really good quarterback at Tennessee. His draft profile had a lot of positives, including a good arm, good deep ball, a very quick release, great accuracies, and just overall being a very fluid and natural passer. Now, there were, of course, some drawbacks, and there were some reasons that Hendon didn't go in the first round, including his ACL tear. He was an older prospect, being 25 years old, entering the NFL draft. The system he played in at Tennessee was very quarterback-friendly, but not very telling of what he'd look like in an NFL offense. And just overall, there was a lot of red flags with Hendon Hooker, even outside the ACL tear. Many believe that he would have and should have been a first-round selection. I personally did not believe that, but there were a number of people that were very high on the Hendon Hooker hype train and thought that he could be an NFL starting quarterback one day. Now, of course, that has yet to happen. He was selected with the 65th overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft class, has played in 3 games in the regular season for the Detroit Lions, as well as 3 preseason games. And I think the best way to put it is that Hendon Hooker has been underwhelming. A lot of people thought we'd see the high-flying, deep ball quarterback that we saw at Tennessee, and that really hasn't been the case for Hendon Hooker throughout the preseason. We haven't seen very many deep balls, haven't seen many shots, and really haven't seen that Heisman contender that we saw all the way back in 2023. His NFL preseason has been okay. 3 games, 29 of 44, 66% completion rate with 300 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Now, in the preseason, I think underwhelming is the best word for it. He's not been awful. He's not lost the Detroit Lions many games throughout the playoffs due to his play, but he also really doesn't elevate players. And yes, he is playing with backups against backups. So the statistics aren't going to look phenomenal. There isn't a ton of game planning. There isn't a ton of, hey, we're going to play to this strength. It's more of, we're going to throw you out there. We're going to let you throw the ball around. We're going to let you make reads and see what you've got. More so than this is the scheme we're running this week. This is what we're looking for. It's more of a general, very basic game plan. And that does hurt a lot of backup quarterbacks, right? When your game plan isn't specifically planned to you, there is not a lot you can really do with it. It's more based off of talent. It's more based off of ability. And that's what the preseason is for. It's to evaluate your players as players. And then when you have them on the roster, you fit them into the scheme or you fit the scheme around them. In the preseason, I think a 29 for 44, 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception isn't bad. But of course, you'd like to see a better touchdown to interception ratio. You'd like to see some more big plays. Just overall, it feels very conservative in the preseason. Now, going into the regular season, Hendon Hooker actually has played in 3 games for the Detroit Lions. They've all been in blowouts. He played at Tennessee. He played against the Dallas Cowboys, as well as, I believe, the Jacksonville Jaguars at the end. And in those 3 games, he's 6 of 9 on completions with a 66% completion rate, 62 yards through the air, 3 first downs, 0 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. At the point in the game where Hendon Hooker finds himself in the lineup, the game is over. They run the ball a lot. They very rarely throw in that situation when they are up. They just hand the ball to Craig Reynolds a few times and they let him get first downs. They let him kind of run out and bleed the clock, and they go home with a major victory. That is really all Hendon Hooker's role has been with the Lions, is turn around, hand the football off, and let Craig Reynolds run the ball. And he has thrown a couple times, of course, 6 of 9, 62 yards, so nearly 10 yards per completion isn't bad. But again, there just isn't a whole lot to evaluate based on the tape that Hendon Hooker has in the regular season. Now, as far as his trade value goes, I don't think it's very good, right? You're talking about a third-year player who's completed or even attempted 9 passes in his career. He's 27 years old, will be 28 at the start of the NFL regular season. We haven't seen any explosive plays from Hendon Hooker, and we really haven't seen a whole lot of progression from his passing game. And if anything, he seems to have regressed as a passer. He really doesn't feel like he has the zip or the accuracy that he did at Tennessee, and where in college he was throwing missiles, he was throwing darts, he was extremely accurate fitting it through windows. In the NFL, he seems to be missing wide open targets. He seems to be overthrowing guys quite a bit, and just overall hasn't been the same accuracy or the same quality of passer that we saw at the University of Tennessee. He hasn't been the same player, and whether that be just a coaching standpoint, whether that be the system being too complicated, whether that just truly be the injury never quite letting him be back to the player that he was, he isn't the same player he was at Tennessee, and to evaluate him as such is disingenuous. If a team was to evaluate Hendon Hooker as he was as a prospect, he probably would be a little bit higher. He probably would hold quite a bit more value, but as of right now, you're not getting more than a day 3 pick, and I think you'd be lucky to get a pick at all for Hendon Hooker from any of these quarterback-needy teams, right? I think you compare him to draft-eligible quarterbacks. I think Cam Ward is a better prospect. I think Shiloh Sanders is a better prospect. I think Jackson Dart is quite a bit better of a prospect. You look at, the tier 3 guys of Jalen Milroe, who I think is pretty comparable as far as value in the draft. But even then, I think Jalen Milroe is a better athlete. I think he's significantly younger. He's got a much, much higher ceiling than Hendon Hooker does at this point. And if you compare what he did as a junior at Alabama to even what Hendon Hooker looks like in the NFL and what he looked like as a junior at Tennessee, I think you're looking at a better prospect in Jalen Milroe. You compare him to Quinn Ewers, who I think is very similar play style wise of he's really just doesn't have the zip. He's got a big enough arm to throw it down the field. He's a good deep ball passer, but he just isn't zipping the balls in. He throws the ball quite high at times and has a lot of the similar issues that Hendon Hooker is plagued with throughout his NFL career. There really isn't a ton of value, right? How much are you going to spend on Quinn Ewers if he was 28 years old? He probably wouldn't get drafted, and if he would, it'd be really late on day 3, right? I think trade value-wise, you're talking day 3 at best. I think you're talking around 5 to 7, and with very, very little value to show for it. Comparing him to some of the other quarterback trades of recent memory, Kenny Pickett was traded for a 5th-round pick to the Cleveland Browns from the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a pick swap or a player swap with a pick involved. It was Kenny Pickett for DTR and a 5th-round pick. So I think quarterback's very comparable backup for backup with a 5th-round pick at value. Malik Willis, who was drafted in the 3rd round, just like Hendon Hooker, is even a little bit younger and I think had a bit more upside, is a 7th-round pick. Zach Wilson, the former 2nd overall pick, was traded for just a 6th. Justin Fields, who accomplished far more in the NFL than Hendon Hooker did, but again, plays a similar style of an athletic quarterback that has a limited arm potential. Got a 6th-round pick that could have been a 4th, but he didn't play enough in Pittsburgh for that to become the case. And even looking at very successful quarterbacks, Geno Smith got traded this offseason, an older quarterback for sure, but a very accomplished one, taking his team to the playoffs, guiding his NFL team for several years at this point, only got a 3rd-round selection. So you're talking about, guys that are better than Hendon Hooker, have accomplished more, are younger, are just as cheap. They're going for 5th, 6th, 7th-round selections, and you're talking about true, really good, like top 15, top 20 quarterbacks in the NFL going for 3rd-round picks. Hendon Hooker's value is little to none. There is no value in Hendon Hooker for an NFL team, and if they do trade for him, it's going to be a 7th-round pick. I don't see the Detroit Lions trading Hendon Hooker. I don't think a 7th-round pick is worth giving up on his potential development, and I don't think there's going to be an NFL team out there that truly believes Hendon Hooker could be their answer at quarterback long term. Now, of course, there are possibilities. I think if a team offers up a 7th-round pick late in the NFL draft and Brad Holmes has already selected a quarterback or has a quarterback in mind for next year, you could make a deal. You could see a trade go through, but overall, the trade value really isn't there. For the Lions, for any other NFL team, Hendon Hooker is what he is. He is a mediocre, potentially below average backup quarterback with some athletic upside, but needs to work on his ability as a passer. He really isn't shown the ability to be a starter in the NFL, and I truly don't believe that he ever will. But you never know. There's always teams that take shots. There's always teams that get really desperate. If they miss out on the guy they really like, they could potentially give a day 3 pick for Hendon Hooker. And honestly, I think anything above a 7th-round pick is value for the Lions. So with that being said, that is all for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below your opinions on Hendon Hooker. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.